Van Kraken here, World of Warships Legends Alpha Tester. Well, rumor has it that a certain US Navy battleship was the late-breaking star of this week's WG community stream highlighting the Royal Navy cruisers. And ironically, it's a ship that might have Edinburgh looking over her shoulder, or maybe more appropriately, over her bow and stern. Georgia is arguably the most unique battleship in the entire US Navy Armada and another vessel that I've personally hoped would move over to Legends from PC. And now it's confirmed that she's coming soon to the Georgia on My Mind campaign event near you. So what would have happened if the United States had not signed the Second London Naval Treaty of 1936, limiting the size of our ships to 35,000 tons and main battery guns to a maximum of 16-inch diameter before the outbreak of World War II? We might have started much earlier on building an evolved Iowa-class ship with guns to match the 18-inchers carried by Yamato and Musashi. As it was, Georgia only existed on paper, with just one main battery barrel prototype being cast. However, she exists in World of Warships PC and now Legends as an answer to the Japanese battleships that were built after their refusal to sign the 1936 Arms Limitation Agreement. Let's run through the pros and cons straight from WG's description in their teaser video for the ship, which will be the first since the introduction of Siegfried to be downsized to Tier 7 from Tier 9 on the PC. On the pros side of the scale, Georgia carries brute firepower in her 457mm or 18-inch main battery guns. Though she only has 6, they pack a wallop with 30+mm overmatch capability and the highest per shell alpha damage in Legends. Yes, Georgia's real-life rounds were nearly 20% more massive than Yamato's and have improved dispersion qualities on PC World of Warships. The other major point of difference of Georgia is her superb mobility. With a 33-knot top speed and respectable rudder shift, albeit on the same long hull as Iowa, she can surprise enemies from flanking positions in a flash, often getting broadside fire on target before they can react. And as if she weren't swift enough already, when the speed boost is activated from her all-around consumable set, Georgia should top out just south of a crazy 40 knots in a Tier 7 battleship. In addition, she gets a repair party with a shorter cooldown period plus the standard damage control party, planes, and secondary boost we have come to expect. Lastly, for pros, Georgia has a signature USN anti-aircraft suite with 66 total guns, which basically means solid protection from carrier attack squadrons, if maybe just a touch less effective than her Tier 7 USN battleship peers. Moving on to the cons, adequate survivability means just that. She should be able to hold up pretty well while bow in against most other ships except enemy Yamatos or other Georgias, but her side and stern armor are notoriously squishy as they are on Iowa, who shares a nearly identical hull. A relatively small health pool is less distressing than the meh secondaries, my own label for the 10 double-barreled dual-purpose mounts that share the same fate as other Nerf secondaries and Legends, with only 5 kilometers of base range and a slower reload by 1 second versus the PC version of Georgia. One final thing you can be sure of is that US Navy battleships are relatively future-proof against power creep from aircraft carriers down the road, either with premium ship or new nation introductions. So if you'd rather shoot down planes than dodge them so much, you can invest in Georgia and feel pretty good about it. Let's move on with a quick comparison of Georgia versus Iowa. Iowa is the pinnacle of the US Navy battleship tech tree line and is one of the most popular ships in Legends since its introduction, is a very valid comparison to evaluate what Georgia brings to the table. Georgia and Iowa share the same historical class, same tier, and a nearly identical hull, but also have some key differences too. From a main battery perspective, it's a mixed bag, as Georgia has 3 fewer but 2-inch bigger caliber barrels with a better reload of 26 seconds and a higher fire chance, but has half a kilometer less base range than Iowa. Secondaries are a tie, with an identical 10 mounts of twin dual-purpose 127mm guns with anemic range as compared to Massachusetts, while Georgia has the advantage on consumables with the aforementioned fast cooldown party that originated on PC Massachusetts and an insane speed boost consumable with Iowa having a standard consumable set. Georgia also gets the nod on mobility, with a slightly higher top speed and faster answer to the call for rudder input. And lastly, hit point pools and armor pretty much wash out, with Iowa having about 10% more hit points but being more lightly armored in some soon-to-be-discovered locations. In total, main battery and mobility features drive the big differences between the two ships, but it's important to note that running Georgia as a premium ship should be much more economically favorable than Iowa for everyday play from a credits perspective, and also for generating the extra XP required for completing campaign trials. So now that we've compared Georgia to her classmate Iowa and identified gunnery as a significant point of difference between the ships, let's sum things up with a look at their key firepower statistic, damage per minute or DPM, and throw in Tier 7 premium battleship Alabama just for fun. Adding Alabama confirms that all the existing Tier 7 US battleships with 406mm or 16-inch guns will perform the same as Iowa in this comparison, including the incoming North Carolina, as the different classes share the same 9-gun main battery configuration. From an armor-piercing round perspective, Iowa and Bama's 3 additional main battery rifles make them the clear leader in raw damage output at 235,800 damage per minute. But the interesting thing is that Georgia trails by only 8% at just over 218,000 with just 6 guns, due to her whopping 15,750 alpha damage per shell, or a full 2,650 hit points more than the 16-inch guns produce. It's a similar comparison between the guns with high explosive DPM, with the same drop-off for Georgia versus her peers. But even more importantly, what we should recognize here is the staggering 56% reduction in damage output moving from AP to HE rounds in US battleships. This should immediately tell you that if you want better results in these ships, try to shoot armor-piercing rounds as often as possible, as there is no way that fire will come close to making up that huge damage gap. Beyond the raw DPM scores, Georgia does have some other advantages to take note of. If the design of her 457mm or 18-inch guns on the PC carries over to Legends, they will have an accuracy buff designed to get more shells on target than their 16-inch cousins. In addition, Georgia has an advantage in overmatch potential, at almost 32mm versus only 28 for Iowa and Bama, and also has a higher HE shell fire chance and the highest Citadel damage per shell in Legends, and the second highest overall in the entire World of Warships universe, trailing only the massive 510mm or 20-inch guns of Shikishima. Since we mentioned it, let's back up for a minute to talk about what the overmatch potential is and why it is important for Georgia, and Yamato for that matter. In our opening, we said that Edinburgh, for example, might be getting nervous about the arrival of Georgia. But why? The reason is that Edinburgh has 30mm bow and stern armor plating that can bounce shells up to 429mm, or 16.9 inches in diameter, that hit the armor at a sharp enough angle to deflect them. In practical terms, that means she can successfully bow tank and frustrate a mighty Iowa or any other battleship with 16-inch guns if she doesn't give them a flat enough surface to shoot at. But in Wargaming Magic number speak, an AP shell whose diameter is greater than 14.3 times the thickness of an armor plate will overmatch and pass through it regardless of angle. So in other words, the overmatch mechanic simply means that a gun of a big enough caliber can literally overpower armor that is not thick enough to stop it, regardless of whether the shells hit flat or at an angle from the side. And in this case, by Wargaming's math, Georgia can penetrate nearly 32mm of armor plate at any angle, so the same angled bow or stern of Edinburgh will be overpowered and penetrated by 18-inch AP shells from either Yamato or Georgia, no matter how they hit. This overmatch effect will make Georgia more potent and versatile than other Tier 7 USN battleships in shooting high damage AP shells at a wider variety of enemy ships with exposed armor of less than 32mm. So it's not only raw damage output of the main battery guns that counts when thinking about Georgia's potential, as you have to factor in her ginormous shells too. So let's finish off this look at our next campaign ship with a list of a few key open-ended questions that might influence your decision to invest in the event or to buy the ship outright. But my mind is pretty much made up. I'm definitely buying Admiralty backing for this Georgia on My Mind campaign, as I pretty much always do, but consider the following for yourself when gauging your potential enjoyment of this ship. First, did she get any significant adjustments to her armor and taking her down from Tier 9 to Tier 7? A change in the bow plate to Siegfried, for instance, had a major impact on her durability, and Georgia is a better flanker than a brawler, even at Tier 9 on PC. How much will the nerfs in range and reload time to Georgia's secondaries impact her ability to deliver a combined level of firepower that meets competitive expectations? With only 6 main battery guns, it is her long-range secondaries equivalent to those of Massachusetts that really make her shine on PC. Will players forget to take their hand off the throttle and find that Georgia's blazing speed is actually a problem for them, getting them overextended from their teammates and focus fired, rather than being a tool for thoughtful flanking? And finally, what commander builds will make the most sense to enhance her capabilities with regard to firepower, survivability, or a bit of both? The player base will undoubtedly get to work on that right away, but you can choose your own path to suit the playstyle that you enjoy. One thing we do know for certain is that Georgia is going to be a unique and dangerous beast in the right player's hands, and hopefully that applies to both you and me. Georgia is a battleship and is intended to tank enemy fire for her more fragile teammates, so why not check out this cool video about successful damage control techniques that you can use to have more staying power in your games in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Or visit our growing library of game tips, guides, and other content here on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to join us for one of our World of Warships Legends or PC live streams here on YouTube or on Twitch. Well folks, as we mark the end of this Georgia video, we should note that it has been completely devoid of the high quality dad jokes or peach puns that you would have certainly come to expect on a softball topic like this. It's really the pits, and I do apologize. Hey, this is your friendly neighborhood Van Kraken, and I am out.